Sheriff will be here in just a minute. Sheriff Ray Russell, as you know, has been in office since 1996, and Metropolitan Government was voted in January the 1st, 2001. That was the day that the police department and the sheriff's departments merged together. And since that time, I've been chief deputy within the sheriff's office, and we've been in law enforcement in Trousdale County for a number of years. We've seen a lot of changes over these years. And as a chamber, I know you're aware of business and promoting business, and but as the business grows and population grows, that brings on more requirement for law enforcement. And last 2 or 3 years, you can really tell a difference in the county. Our traffic is becoming an issue. As you know, we work school traffic at the elementary school morning and evening, and at the high school in the evenings. And the reports we're getting from the citizens as well as the officers working traffic, we're almost at capacity now. There's more traffic in Hartsville than we have roads. So that issue is going to have to be addressed in the future. Sheriff, I'll turn it over to you if you've got something you'd like to say, and we'll just open it up. Anyone's got questions, be glad to answer. And when the sheriff gets finished, I'll be glad to tell you a little about how the sheriff's office is structured and what a glimpse of one day in the sheriff's department might look like.
Well, I appreciate y'all having us come out today and talk a little bit. Not really one thing we'll talk about, just anything y'all want, it's on y'all's mind. I can tell you right now, during the COVID issue we've had, the last couple of years have really been hard on us. As far as the workers, I think just about every employee of the sheriff's department has had COVID, some of them twice. The prisoners, a lot of them have had it throughout the jail for the last 2 years. We've been using our holding cells over in the correctional center here to hold inmates, to classify them and keep them segregated away from the ones that are sick. So it's been hard for us. We just juggling people back and forth, trying to keep everybody healthy and keep them from catching the COVID. And same way with our bonding issues we've been trying to cite more people into court, and instead of having low bonds, I think it's pretty much statewide to keep people from coming into the jail, to contaminate the jail and the staff that works there. It's just been a real issue for the last 2 years of that. Like Wayland was talking about, our crime rate has increased. We're getting worse crimes now than we had in the past. I can remember we went for 15 years without a murder in Trousdale County, and we've had several in the last few years. We've had several out here at the prison. We got 2 right now that committed murders at the prison. They're being held for Trousdale County. They were ready to be released to us, and one of them's mentally ill. He thinks he's some kind of waterfowl or something, and he killed his cellmate for playing the radio too loud. And then there was another one in there, killed his cellmate, he stabbed him to death. And they're holding them for us instead of us holding them here, because we really don't have anywhere to put them. Segregation-wide, our jail was built back in the 50s to keep people, public intoxication, low crime people. And we're experiencing all these other hindrance crimes, mental health issues. We got a lot of people coming in with mental health issues that, and there's no way to segregate them out. We've got one female cell, we have to keep all females in. And I get other counties to house prisoners for us. Rutherford County has held some, Wilson County, Robinson County's got 2 right now holding for us. Like I say, TDOC's got 2. That just locally, these other counties help us out. If it wasn't for them, I don't know what we would do. Our jail population, we're trying to keep it down as low as we can. We stay in the 30s. Before COVID, we were running in the 50s, 60s. And the state of Tennessee released a whole lot of prisoners when COVID first hit to get them out as far as the COVID issues. And when they done that, that pulled some out of our county jails too. Anything y'all want to talk about? on your minds or
How
anything?
many does the jail really supposed to hold?
44 beds.
That's what I thought, yeah.
And the state, says that we got 38 were full. You gotta have some open beds for, you're still
Oh,
full
yeah.
capacity. And, I know we're talking about building a new jail right now. It's not my idea, it's not something I really want. Along with building a new jail, 150 beds comes on more responsibility, more workers. And it's hard to keep what we got right now, and we're struggling with that. But it's something that we're gonna have to do as a community, whether we want to or not, because the state will put us on like a list where if you don't do something, they'll cut out all your state funding. And we're pretty much, we're gonna have to do something. And like I say, it's not, nothing that we wanna do, but just segregating people is more important than just bed space. You know, you wouldn't want somebody, like I was just talking about down at TDOC, locked up with your child or grandchild in there for something, a little minor offense.
Right.
And that's kind of where we're at. It's hard to segregate them. Well,
I'll bring up something. As a county historian, our first jail was in 1874, I think, and it was on the post office. And then they built this one down here in the 1950s. And since I moved here in 1969, I've always wondered, why did they build it by the creek? Danger of flooding, so on and so on. But that's where they put it. So since I lived here, I've never had anyone give me an answer to that. And I always thought, well, you know what, somebody owned that land and made a good deal on it, and so they had state connections. But that's not why. The first one was put on the hill because it was next to the black neighborhood, which is poor, and they had no word in it. It was put down here because there was no other place in town that anyone would have set it. Here, it wasn't next to anyone's house. You see, that was farm field, this is industry downtown, so that's why they ended up there.
yeah.
Now, my next question is, where will it go next? If you have any ideas where it might go to the jail?
Right now, the county is in the process, the committee, there'll be architects, you know, they turn in their qualifications, RFQs, and it'll be up to the committee to go through there and pick out so many and interview the different companies and maybe go look at some jails and stuff they've built and pick out which architect, engineering firm they want to use. So that's the next step right now. Then once they do that, then they'll have to find the land to put it on. Yeah, the jail here that's built here is actually built on a junkyard. If you go in behind the jail and look, you see pieces of metal and cable and stuff sticking out of the bank. They'll have them along behind the jail. There's cars and everything buried underneath the jail.
This was, this whole area was originally a livery stable. And then the livery stable became the first car dealership in Trousdale County. And so all kinds of car, like you say, car parts and their car repair was all volumes.
I know the jail here is starting to deteriorate in the that's like Wanda Kemp came back to work for me part-time. The floors in the jail, the hardwood floors, they're starting to buck and crack. Because every time it rains, water gets under the jail about waist deep. And all that moisture underneath there over the years. And the new part of the jail is sinking from the old part. It's dropped about 2 inches. Because it's just, all that water, saturates the ground, it's just sinking, and it's breaking apart. But it's something we're gonna have to do. I know it's gonna cost a lot, how much I don't know, but, I wish we could wait, but the way it's growing, the population is growing, there's no way you can wait much longer.
When you have to move prisoners to other counties, is there a charge for that? Do the other county charge us?
Not
for
normally,
housing them?
I help out the other counties too. I've held people for them that may have, they might have somebody worked undercover, or have some kind of conflict with something that, with somebody.
That's it.
Or it might be a witness. I've held them for witness, because they won't be in the same jail as where somebody committed a crime. I've held them for different counties. We're getting a lot of work from Trousdale Turner. You know, they always said it wouldn't be much to us. I went last Friday, or last week, and picked up a prisoner up in Kentucky. It was about a 5-hour drive. Me and a deputy went and got him. We took him back yesterday. And he had assaulted another inmate out here, stabbed him, I think, 16 times, and we had to go get him. Everything that's charged out there, we don't work it, but we have to run it through our court system. and it gets a lot of extra work on us doing that. And another thing they do to us a lot, if it's another state got a detainer or a hold on somebody out here at this prison, instead of calling them a week ahead of time, say, hey, they're gonna get out Wednesday at 12, they'll wait till that morning, about 8 o'clock, and call them. There's no way they can come from Chicago down here and pick somebody up. So usually Cheney or one of the detectives will go, have to take out a fugitive justice warrant, get Judge Lemon to sign off on it. And we have to do it, and then we'll go out there and get them, bring them, hold them in our jail, have to take them in front of the judge. Then they got 10 days to come pick them up after they sign the extradition waiver. And we don't get paid anything for that. That's just a lot of extra work it brings on us.
Like the sheriff said, our jail was built when George Taylor was sheriff, and it was built for citizens that get in trouble every once in a while. It wasn't built for criminals. And you start putting hardened criminals in Sheriff Taylor's jail, it's hard to hold them.
Yeah.
They don't mix well.
Yeah, the Mayberry's gone. Now, when I first came to work here, when I first came to work here, Sheriff Robinson would let them go home at Christmas. The ones that was in it for public intoxication. And he'd tell us, hey, I'm gonna let y'all go home this Christmas Eve. Y'all come back the day after Christmas. I better not have to come get you. And they would, we'd let them all out. They'd go home at Christmas, come back 2 days later, they'd come on back to jail. And that's the way it was when I first started working. I've really seen the changes. I know Wayland's been working longer than I have. He's seen a lot of changes too. It's really changed.
Well, in 1985, when I started, the sheriff just had 2 or 3 deputies, and they worked about 10 o'clock, and there was no coverage in the county after that. The city police had 8 officers. We had 2 on duty most times. And at that time, if you found marijuana or other drugs, hard drugs, was unheard of. That was big news. We'd find somebody with marijuana, talk about it for 6 months. And now, if it's not a suitcase full, write them a ticket and tell them see you in court.
Yeah.
And it's just how times have changed, and all that has, our society here in Trousdale County has changed in the past 36 years. I used to sit on the highway, and out of 10 cars that went by, I knew 9 of them and who they were related to and what kind of car they drove. And now I can see 10 cars go by and I won't know one of them. So times are changing. They really don't care if you know them or not, see, for the most part. And those days are changing. When I first started police work, if someone was causing a problem in town, you wouldn't have to deal with him. You just, whoever's in charge of that family, it might be granddaddy or grandma, or somebody's in charge of that bunch, you call and tell them, hey, we got a problem. And they would take care of it. But those days are dwindling away, and more and more services are required. And that's just the nature of the things to come. But you have a question, Liz?
Well, I just wondered, aside from the prison, because I feel like the prison is kind of its own animal, but aside from the prison out in the county, what is, I guess, our biggest struggle in the public? Is it mental health? Is it drugs? Like, what are you seeing as the biggest issue for Trousdale right now?
There are crimes all across the board, but mostly the root cause is alcohol and drug abuse, and mainly drugs. Because drugs lead into mistreatment of children, and with marital issues and family issues and not paying the bills, and then those arguments and fights start. So if all of those, the substance abuse issues, and then substance abuse brings on mental health problems, because after a long-term use, it impairs their mental ability and ability to function around other people. And it's
We have to deal with that also. Just say, for instance, you got somebody in your family, they're not under arrest, and they got a mental issue, you take them up here to the hospital to have them evaluated. The doctor sends them to Nashville, wherever he wants to send them to. The sheriff's department, we have to do the transporting. Even though they're not under arrest, state law says we have to do it. So that ties us up a lot with mental health, because an officer, say, just goes to Nashville, to Middle Tennessee Mental Health, they keep you there for 2 hours, do an evaluation before they'll let you go. And there you got an officer tied up, an hour drive to Nashville, 2 hours there, you tied up for 4 hours for taking somebody to mental health that we don't even have charges on.
And we're one of the lucky ones. Macon County has to go to Moccasin Bend, Chattanooga.
Wow.
We're lucky we get to go to
Yeah.
Nashville.
And that happens weekly. Last week, we had two people walk up at the jail wanting us to lock them up.
Right.
It was two different people that had nothing relation to each other. One came to the jail, and he said, "Sheriff, just go ahead and lock me up." I said, "Why?" He said, "You got warrants on me." I said, "Well, come on, I knew the guy. He's an auto diesel mechanic, good guy." I said, "Come on in there." I said, "We ain't got warrants on you," but I didn't know that he'd been in mental health at Vanderbilt prior to that. And there was another one walked up at the station, and same thing with him. We had to both transport both of them to mental health.
And luckily, like I said, people with mental health, luckily, in Trousdale County, I don't know about other counties, I can't speak to them, but they still understand that we're there to help them. So even if they've got, people in the closets or people in the sheds that's out to do them harm, at least they know that the sheriff's office is there to help them and call us for help, and they're not shooting at us, so.
If someone in your family needed mental health help, instead of taking them to the local hospital where you have to transport them to Nashville, is it something where the family member could take them to Nashville on their own?
No.
Okay.
Well, if anyone's having mental health issues, first thing is go consult your doctor
Right.
and see what he advises. Maybe be able to schedule an appointment. The route he's telling you about is, the Tennessee Department of Mental Health has crisis teams that do the evaluation, and if there's evidence
Immediate danger.
that they're a danger to themselves or others, then the doctor will sign an involuntary committal order. And on that doctor's order, that's when we transport to a private facility, or most time a state facility, and then they determine whether they stay or not.
Just so somebody's mentally ill, does not mean they're a criminal. They have committed a
Exactly. I didn't know
crime.
if there was a way to bypass.
Yeah.
There's lots of services without engaging us. This is usually when everything else has failed and everyone else has thrown their hands up, and it's left to the state or the county to deal with the issue, because everybody else is just about giving up or can't do anything with it.
Yeah, we've seen a lot more of it too than what we used to. Like some over drug use, a lot of people I've known around here are not stable as they once were.
And the sheriff knows, like I do, when we were growing up, it was alcohol and there was some marijuana maybe, but that was about it. And if young people experiment with those, which they shouldn't have done it, there was an opportunity to get over it. Now the drugs are so damaging and so altering of the mental health, sometimes they may never recover.
So what is probably the number one drug you see now? Is there one specific that stands out?
One, methamphetamine.
Meth is still good.
And they're cutting it with fentanyl, painkiller, and they put too much in it. There's a lot of people ODing from it. A lot of your drug, people that are addicted, they'll keep Narcan with them and do drugs together. And if one of them does too much and start to OD, they'll shoot each other up to bring them back alive. Like, a lot of your drug dealers users keep a lot of that on them now.
And they're flirting with disaster all the time.
We had a boy down here in jail a couple months ago. He stayed with us for about a month. We got him released to in-house treatment over in Lebanon. Brent Lackey, a lot of y'all know Brent, grew up here. He retired from FedEx. He's in the ministry full-time. They're trying to help people get back on their feet and get off drugs and stuff. We released him to him, and he stayed there for about 2 weeks, and he walked off. They found him the next day with no clothes on at a fast food restaurant. He got out, got on some drugs again, and they picked him up. We brought him back to jail here, and we kept him for about a month till he got out. And Brett and them told him to come see me. He said, "Come see me when you get out. We'll put you back in treatment." A week later, they found him down in Antioch laying on the side of the road dead, where he had OD'd with some more people, and they just threw him out of the car. And we see a lot of that now. A lot of people, they're ODing, and they just throw them out in the parking lot, just push them out of the car somewhere. But this boy was 25 years old, and just threw him out.
Dwight's got a question.
touch on the increase in female population? A lot of reasons we're having.
It is, female population
Forward.
has doubled in the last 5 years. I think today we got 6 female beds. We got 8 or 9 in there right now. At some times, we have had 14 in 6 beds, and they just stretch out, sleep on the floor, and have to step over top of each other. And we tried to use, at one time, we just had we got 2 cells with 6 beds. And before the COVID hit, we was having to use 2 cell blocks just for the females. Then we got our numbers down. I'm having to keep some up here to keep from overcrowding. I've got one up here right now. She gets out Thursday. She got mental health issues. She's a predator too. That means that she is in the prison. It's called the Prison Rape Elimination Act, called PREA. Is whenever you have people that rape other people in jail or prison, you have to segregate them from other people. So I've got one up here right now that's segregated from the other females. And I got a victim of a female is in the cell down there too that was, so we have to deal with all that. You can't just put them in with each other. That's what we're talking about.
And that's just a sign of the times. You know, society has got to deal with this as through the sheriff's office. 36 years ago, when I started police work, you know, for several years, arresting a lady was unheard of. It just didn't happen. Maybe once every 2 or 3 years, a worthless check. That would just, you know, and society didn't approve of that, so it wasn't done. But over the years, as things have changed, it's become accepted in society for that type of conduct, and here it comes. And there's some women out there mean as 3 men put together.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd rather have 10 men than 1 woman. They get pretty rough sometimes.
So as far as staffing goes, are y'all fully staffed? And is it difficult or easy to attract staff?
It's hard right now. I had one turn his time in today. He's gonna go work for TDLC. He's gonna be making $9.50 an hour more than what he's making for me. They got a $5 pay increase, TDLC did across the board statewide. Last month, Governor Lee put it in effect. It's not only just our people quitting and going to work for other departments, it's private sector too. It's paying so well with benefits, and we're having a hard time right now struggling. We're 3 deputies short. We've hired 2. We've still got to hire 1. 2 of them has got to go to training. And one of them will be leaving next month for the academy, and I don't know if the other one got accepted yet or not, has he?
No.
So that's 12 weeks long. Usually when we hire somebody, from the time we hire them and get them through the academy, we've got about a year vested in them. And then that person, you pay them for a year, they can't do anything but ride with a supervisor. You just can't put them out. When I first started, and probably Wayland too, I rode 2 nights with a deputy, and that 3rd night I was on my own. I borrowed a pistol from Wayland, and had to borrow a holster from somebody, and didn't have a uniform. We had old cars that were unmarked, had a light bar on, they were made in the 60s. And you pulled a switch, cut your light on, it would just barely turn, it would stop, you'd reach out there and slap it. Get your light to come back on. And my car would do 69, that's all it would do. So if I was running emergency traffic on a wreck or something, I knew I couldn't get no faster than 69. Trooper Drake, I don't know if some of y'all remember him, he come by me one day, it was a bad wreck on 231 North. And I was trying to get there before he did. He come around me like a streak of light. He said, "Excuse me, deputy." He come around me.
So we have improved over the years?
Yeah, we have. We've gotten better. And I was riding up Dog Branch years ago, and my cage in the car fell over in the back seat. It was about midnight. I thought somebody was back there. And it was held in with little bitty wood screws, screwed into the plastic molding. That's what held my cage in. If I'd have known that, you know how many people I'd had back there for that. But yeah, it's changed a lot for the good. Equipment-wise, you know, back then we didn't have nothing. You had to buy your own weapons. You had to buy your own leather. You had had to buy you a shotgun. We had one bulletproof vest hanging in the closet, and everybody used it. And you didn't want to use it after somebody else used it, you know, that day. Oh, come off that shield. It all sweat, stinking, about like a field house, you know, football uniform. And the first bulletproof vest we got, we went to Metro Nashville and got them. They were used. And we didn't do too good by getting those. They were pretty rough. We had to pick through them. But luckily now, you know, we've all got good equipment. That's one thing. We've got a lot of good grant money we've gotten. Everybody's got weapons, and everybody's well equipped now, better trained.
So Nashville had a huge stink about trying to get body cams for everyone, but you've had them for quite a while.
Body cameras.
Yeah,
We were the first sheriff's department in the state of Tennessee to have body cameras.
and you think it's a good thing?
Yes.
Well, and the reason we got those body cameras, back in December of 2011, you may remember Harold Cooley was a sergeant here at the sheriff's office, and he went out domestic one night with a gun, and he had a camera in the car, and it was showing the front door of the house. Well, he had to go around the back of the house to confront the suspect, and everything happened back there where the camera couldn't see, and he wound up getting shot, and shot his right eye out. And there was no video documentation, which it was well documented in court. But we started exploring getting body cameras then. However, one thing we do stress is body cameras are only issued to the officers after they've been trained and explained and demonstrated they understand how to do the job. And then we tell them it's not there to catch you doing wrong, it's there to document you doing right. And it's the eye that don't ever blink that the public can see what the officer's doing. And I've never had a camera harm a good officer. We have seen some issues that needed correcting, sometimes immediately, sometimes through extra training. But when we first put those out, the officers knew where to conduct themselves, and they came to that spot. And then the citizens understood that it had been recorded, so they cleaned their act up a little bit too. So it's worked out pretty good.
Yeah, we had a lady come in one time. She was arrested for, the deputy probably could have arrested her for DUI. I know he could have, but he gave her a citation for speeding. She was doing 70-something in a 45, arrested her for PD, and she went out and hired an attorney and brought him into the office there, me and Wayland, and said, you know, she said she had been thrown on the hood, and drugged to the car, and forced in the car, just mistreated, and didn't know that we had it recorded. So the attorney, her and her father, all of us sitting there in the room, and we said, well, we'll just watch it. Watch it. We didn't know you had a copy. He said, yeah. We watched it, and the attorney got up. It was nothing what she said was on it at all. So the attorney got up, and he said, well, I appreciate y'all letting me look at this. And the father said, hey, I'm sorry. He was real mad at me and Wayland, thinking, you know, that we had mistreated his daughter. But it was untrue.
And that's pretty good times. Everybody learned we had them. It doesn't happen like that much anymore.
Yeah. That happened 2 or 3 times until the word got out. Yeah, I was at a sheriff's meeting one day in Lebanon, Sheriff Association. I'm on the legislative committee, and we were sitting around the table. It was about 15 sheriffs across the state. It was Chattanooga was there, Nashville, Memphis, all the big city sheriffs were there, and they're fighting body cameras. They don't want it. They said, you know, it's be bad for the officers to have to wear these. I said, no, it's not. You know, why would you not want to wear it? He said, would you like to have one? I said, we've got them. We've had them for 3 or 4 years. And they couldn't believe. She said, you mean Trousdale County, y'all the smallest county state, y'all got body cameras? I said, yeah. We got them on every officer. And they couldn't believe it, that we had them. And now they're glad they're out there and they want them, because it protects the officer as much as it does the public.
This
Do
lady.
you have an area in Trousdale that seems to be, you said a lot of crime was up? Is there an area that is worse than others?
Not really. It's spread out everywhere. There are some areas not quite hardly as bad than some other parts of, you know, the population is not as dense. But overall, we get calls all over the whole county.
I was just gonna ask about, school resource officers. Do you have one in each of the schools here right now?
We're budgeting budgeted for one at each one of the schools. And we've had staffing issues. We're currently down one at elementary school, but there is a provision for one at each of the three schools.
And they have some great stories, I'm sure, with, students, as we talked about mental health already a little bit, and you're seeing so much of that in schools and our youth struggling. I've heard testimony after testimony of how great the resource officers are as a safe place to talk. It might not just be the teachers, but they find confidence, like you were saying earlier too. They know that residents know that you're there for them, to protect them and to help them in trouble. And I just think that that's been a great investment to have that connection in our schools.
Right, and even, not to mention the security it provides for the facility and the people in that facility. It's a good spot for the children to learn if they can talk to that officer and see them as what they really are and not just something to be afraid of. So that's a pet peeve I've always had. If I walk in a restaurant and I hear somebody say, you better straighten that up, officer, gonna get you. Boy, that burns me up. Most of the time I stop and I say, no, son, I don't bother you. I get parents for telling lies to kids. We're here to help you. But most of the time that cuts that off. We're there to help them. We're not there to mistreat them or make them be afraid of us. Sir?
I know the county commission just voted to make our EMSs a little more competitive wage-wise. How are we on the law enforcement side competitive with other counties?
We're gonna have a meeting next week and talk about maybe giving an increase for law enforcement until this budget year's up. And, we're behind. We've done a pay study, for surrounding counties, and some more counties kind of equivalent to us, and we're behind. I know the correction is like $3 an hour behind other counties around us. It's benefits, we're behind. We're a little bit behind on everything around us, and the other counties around us, they're doing pay studies too. They're increasing. That's like I said, TDOC went to $5 an hour increase. They did out here at the prison too. You can start out here, I think now, like at $21.68 an hour with TDOC plus the state benefits. And the fellow leaving me, he came work for me from the state, but now he says he can't afford to stay. He said he can get all the overtime he wants at $21.50 an hour, what he's making, and he just can't stay. He's making $14.50 with me. He's gonna go make $21.50. I think that's right. Or $22.50.
$14.50 to stand between us and Lloyd.
Walmart pays more than that.
I know.
Wow.
And, that's like I'm talking about. Your correction officers, they just as much important as your patrol officers. Because they're back there taking care of these mental health people. There's back there that's trying to harm themselves and harm others. You get spit on, you have to fight them. You're having to restrain them. And they got diseases. I contracted TB when I was a deputy. Me and another deputy transported a guy to Nashville. We both contracted TB and had to take medicine for a year from transporting a guy. And I'll test positive for the rest of my life. It's in my system. But that's just the issue. You got AIDS and other infectious diseases that we have to deal with. And you don't know if you're gonna get it or not. It's just hard to, and I can't, right now, I've got 18 people that work at the jail, that's including the two maintenance guys that I got to go around and pick up trash and mow and do other things. Out of the 18 of them, 11 of them has been there less than 2 years. And you get to that, to 5 years, it's only been like 3 of them been there longer than 5 years maybe. And I had to bring back my old jail administrator, Wanda Kemp, and hire her into a part-time spot as a full-time position just to get her to help train the other staff because they don't know what to do. We got record management systems. We have to, it's a whole lot of paperwork we do. We arrest somebody, you have to swab them, swab their mouth, send it in for DNA, do their fingerprints every time they're arrested. You have to document the tattoos on them. It's a lot of little things you don't think about when somebody's arrested. You have to document and do. And when you just hire somebody off the street that's never done these things before, he's just learning a whole system. training has been down too because of COVID. We do most everything online. It makes it harder too on that part. A lot of them's never even been through a basic training like we should have. And it's just real hard to keep people and keep them trained, especially what we're paying right now. It's really hard.
Any other questions? We don't want to take up too much of y'all's time, you know, you got other things to do.
How we come to the way Hartsville Trousdale was growing, how we guesstimate how many beds in a new jail, which we definitely gonna have one of these days, ain't no doubt
Yeah,
about it.
the state came in and done a survey, and they said at least 105 beds. But the architects have looked at this, and they said, that's not gonna be enough. The way this county's growing, they said, there ain't no way that's gonna be enough. In 10 years, you'll be building on.
Yep.
He said, you better go ahead and do it now and be done with it for a while. Macon County, their jail's been built for 20 years, and there ain't no 200 beds. They were built for 125, they've been running 225. They got 100 people sleeping on the floor up there in Macon County right now. They've got them in closets, little holding areas, sleeping on cardboard and on mats, having to step over each other. Wilson County, I've seen their jail, they ain't on 400
Yeah,
beds.
yeah, they really built a big add on.
And they're overcrowded everywhere. I don't know what the bottom line is, it just keeps getting to be a bigger and bigger thing.
We take, you know, like last night with that town of Melrose going through 113 new residents out there, you know. Some of them probably be a few people here in town, but most of them gonna be newcomers, I would guesstimate, so.
Yeah,
You
most
know,
people
jumping
moving
that,
in here.
them kind of jumps, it gets you out of hand pretty quick.
Yeah. And it's getting harder for the officers to keep up, you know, we'll arrest somebody like I was talking about. If you work a crash, you gotta do a Tibers report, a Titan report. How many pages long is it, 8 pages now? Just on a crash. It used to be a front and back when I first started. Wrote it out with a pencil, mailed it in. Now you gotta do it, send it in on that shift. And not counting, if you arrest somebody for DUI, you gotta take them to the hospital, you gotta draw blood, you gotta do your paperwork from the hospital, you bring them in. It takes you probably a couple hours to process it. And you see cars parked over at the station and then at the office down here, that's what they're doing there, and they're processing their reports. And
You mean it's not like how they do on TV?
no. No, it ain't like you see on CSI where they looking. Get somebody's fingerprints and stick it in something in the trunk and it tells who it is. It takes us 6 months normally to run fingerprints, to TBI, till we find out actually who we come back to. Unless it's a murder case, we might be able to step it up priority. But if it's a burglary or a theft or something, sometimes it takes 6 months or longer just to get a report back.
Addressing the jail or the new jail that we're looking at, one thing that has been a priority as far as the commission is trying to emphasize that we want a design that's easily added on to. So not build it where you can't expand it, therefore more property enough to be able to do that. And the design concept itself for the commons areas, things like laundry, things like file rooms, things of that nature are overbuilt. Kitchen, space, whether you put the stoves there, you've got room to put them there.
Yeah.
And to do that, it's probably gonna cost more on the immediate front, but it will save money later on.
Yeah.
And the numbers, one thing that's been so hard is how COVID skewed the jail population numbers to do your study, your trends over the last few years. So it's your best crystal ball as far as what you're gonna need or not need. And we've had a lot of very experienced people looking at it, input from everybody that has to deal with it and do with it. But that's, you know, everybody wants to know what's it gonna cost. You can't decide what it's gonna cost, you know how big it's gonna be, where you're gonna put it. We don't know where we're gonna put it, but we know how big it's gonna be. So it's kind of the begats, this begats that, you have to take it in a progressive type of order. But it is something, like the sheriff says, that we're facing, We know we have to deal with it. If we started construction today, and we're a year away from construction, at the best, but if we started it today, it would be 2 years before they'd have us in the bed. You just don't build a facility like this overnight.
They say we need at least about 10 acres for expansion.
So we're, there's still just a lot of ways that we're trying to get
And
answers.
one of the main things too, you gotta look at your infrastructure. You gotta have the sewer, water, gas availability, and you don't wanna have to run it for a mile or half mile away, so it's gotta be pretty close to within the urban area.
And you balance that with trying to stay away from residential neighborhoods, so you don't have the whole town in an uproar. It's, very few places that's even possibility, but there are some that have been identified as possibilities, so.
And then we might pick something out, and they have to go out and core drill it, it may not be suitable. There's a lot of things play into it.
It's a big process, it's a lengthy process to do it right. But I think that, even the ones doing the figures on projections, they wanted to go 10 years out. 10 years goes by like that. We were asking for 20, and they said, well, we can't guarantee how accurate they're gonna be in 15 or 20. So, that's where we came up with the idea of trying to build it so that you can easily expand it. And we did that with the high school. If you look at the high school campus, you come out either end, the groundwork's already laid there, you just put down concrete and building more rooms. So, trying to use that same type of concept with this is difficult. It's very difficult. But the main issue we've had here is segregation, trying to keep classifications.
Yeah, that's hard.
Being separate, particularly.
I'm on the phone all the time trying to get prisoners shuffled around, moved somewhere else.
I don't know how they've done as well as they do.
It's been hard. And transport, we got court coming up the 25th, and we'll have to pick up at probably 5 jails. We'll have to go to TDOC and pick up, and just for court. We'll have 5, 6 cars on the road picking up transport. And I have to take my work crew staff, all of them, to help transport on our big court days. And some days we've got 3 courts going on at the same time. It's getting busier and busier for us. I think it's time to quit. So
We appreciate y'all's time.
y'all appreciate it.
Okay, get out your tickets. We have 2 door prizes. I'm just gonna draw because I'm here. Okay, number 772, 772. Okay, you get a $10 gift certificate to Farmer's Harvest Restaurant.
Awesome. Well,
Okay. And the next door prize is going to be number 619. You get a pound of bacon from Woodsville Farm. Bacon. There you go. I like bacon. It's BLT time.
walk out with that bacon inside.
Okay, yes. All right, thank you all for coming. April 12th is our next chamber meeting. Stop and pick up your membership card if you're a member, and have a great day. If you need seconds, we have plenty of leftovers and pie.
So you can.